We're ready for the start. They're off.
A good Friday, everybody, and welcome into the First Call podcast presented by First Bet and Express Bet. Jeremy Plonk alongside Jeff Siegel. And our Friday podcast, Jeff, we look ahead to weekend stakes races. We didn't have to do a whole lot of scripting the last 4, 5, 6 weeks. It kind of, well, let's go back to July, right? Until the beginning of Saratoga and Del Mar, the 8 stakes races every weekend kind of set themselves in stone. But with the Breeders' Cup now just 3 weeks away and nobody wanting to prep inside the 4-week mark practically, and that's even a hesitancy anymore. We don't have a major stakes lineup this weekend, but what we do have is some solid stakes racing and a big carryover in the Pick 6 at Santa Anita that'll have a mandatory payout and perhaps a $2 million pool. So we've got good gambling this weekend. We may not have the marquee names in action, but that's why we play, right?
I think we had 8 grade ones last week at the handicap. Had to pull teeth to find some, but we're handicapping some of these tracks that we don't often dive into. So it's a little bit of variety here as we wait for Breeders' Cup and 3 weeks down the road. But there are still some decent gambling opportunities here in the stakes races. And you mentioned that mandatory payoff at Santa Anita. I'll have a full card analysis and wagering strategies for that at ExpressBet and on my various blogs and at XPTV as well. So still money to be made, and we're going to try to do it looking ahead to some stakes races this weekend.
October 14th money spends just as well as November 5th money, right? I mean, it's 8-1 is 8-1, 10-1 is 10-1. So let's try to pop a couple prices in here and do our due diligence in the handicapping world this weekend. Also, a lot of great international racing going on, and it's all offered at ExpressBet and First Bet. If you play Australian racing or you want to try it out, this is a great night for it. Overnight tonight, 2 major stakes races at 2 different venues. At Caulfield, they'll have the Caulfield Cup, goes about 2:15 Eastern late this evening. And an hour before that at Randwick, they'll run the $9 million Everest Stakes. So that's at 1:15 Eastern time. More plausible for you out on the West Coast, Jeff. I got to tell you, though, I'm up working at 1:15 and 2:15 this time of year. So I'll still be up. I might catch it live tonight. But for you, it's just kind of like, it's like late local news time.
Yes, but I also have to get up and early to watch Champions Day. So there's a trade-off there overseas in England. So, but I'll definitely try to watch them both. But the good news about DVR is that you can wake up and not know the result. It's live if you don't know who won it.
Yeah.
Of course, if you want to bet on it, you better do it the night before if you're in my situation. But no, I love watching the European racing for sure, because we get a lot of those horses over here. And Baid's supposed to run tomorrow, and I want to see him. So I'll be up early to watch all that great racing overseas.
Yeah, Champions Day at Ascot will kick off about 6 hours after they run the Caulfield Cup. So, yeah, I mean, just stick around, keep the slippers on, make an extra coffee or tea and make a night and morning of it. Should be some interesting international racing going on this weekend. And look, we see horses come from Champions Day at Ascot and come back in the Breeders' Cup. The American horses don't want to run back on 3 weeks rest anymore. But for the Europeans, they really haven't had, too big of a tiff with it. So we could see something coming out of Champions Day at Ascot for sure and run on Breeders' Cup Day. So it's worth a look there. Baid expected to be the last race of his storybook career, trying to retire undefeated. We won't see him in the Breeders' Cup under any indication to this point. So we may not get the headliner, but it's good studying towards the Breeders' Cup, if you will. And Jeff, you mentioned like not wanting to see the result. One of the fun features at ExpressBet and First Bet is you can actually hide the results when you watch the replays. And I know my old buddy Johnny D, that was one of his things that he used to fight for, because he said, if I have a bet on the race, I don't want to know the result before I see the replay. And so you can actually hide the results in the replay section and see the race as if it was live for you. And with a 2:15 post time overnight this morning, maybe that's the way to do it with a Pop-Tart and a coffee in the next morning. Check it out. Let's look at our schedule of races we've got for you on the podcast this week. Again, 8 stakes is the format we take here in the First Call podcast. We're going to take you to Delaware Park for some 2-year-olds starting off. Belmont at Aqueduct's got the Sands Point for the fillies on the turf. Same story at Keeneland. Hey, you think they called each other and said, let's run 2 stakes for fillies on the turf the same day? Sands Point and Queen Elizabeth II Challenge Cup going there. On the West Coast at Santa Anita, it's the California Distaff and part of that big $250,000 plus carryover in the Pick 6. Expected hit a $2 million pool on Saturday at Santa Anita. And we're going to give you a little extra incentive to play that. We'll talk about that in a bit. But the California Distaff on our handicapping radar. I want to remind you, British Champions Day with 10 times Express Bet Wager rewards points when you bet those races Saturday morning at Ascot. Our handicapping on this podcast will continue for Sunday with 4 more stakes races. North of the border to Woodbine for the Princess Elizabeth. Then at Aqueduct, they'll sprint on the main in the Floral Park, or sprint on the turf, I should say, in the Floral Park. And hey, did they call each other? There's also a sprint on the turf for the fillies at Keeneland, the Franklin Stakes the same day. And Santa Anita will wrap it up with the California flag. Jeff, I say it kind of tongue-in-cheek, but I mean it. Does anybody talk to each other across the country when they put a stake schedule together? Or is everybody so focused on their backyard and their stakes programs that they don't bother to send a text?
Yeah, sometimes you wonder. I know that in California, they try to coordinate it with Golden Gate. Whenever they have a big race at Golden Gate, they'll space it out. They'll incorporate it in the matrix, so to speak. So out here, there is now, and usually with grade 1s, you tend to want to, to try to space it out as well, although not so much anymore. But with races like this, it's like everybody for himself, I think, and then they try to hustle the other guy's horses to come over.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because you've got those 2-3-year-old stakes races for fillies going long on the grass today, this weekend, and you certainly should have, and could have combined the 2 into one really decent race. It would have been. Now it's kind of watered down, so we deal with what we got. That's all we can do.
Also on the stakes schedule, I want to remind you, Friday here as we tape our podcast each Friday, really nice day of stakes racing around the country. You've got the Sycamore Stakes with Arklow and Red Knight and all the top Kentucky-based turf marathon type horses. Channel Makers in that race as well. So the Sycamore's a really good race on Friday. And if you like the harness action, 8 stakes races tonight for Hoosier Champions Night. Al Smagli has got your analysis for all the harness action at expressbet.com and on news.first.com. But a big night at Hoosier Park tonight for the harness fans as well. So a lot going on. Jeff, let's get handicapping. We're going to start right off the top and go to Delaware Park. It's the Rocky Run Stakes, 1 mile here on the main track. It's a 2-turn race at Delaware Park as they go the mile there, traditional 1 mile oval in Stanton. And, you get some horses from Parks, you get some horses from Jersey, you get some local horses in here. One that I know you wanted to spotlight was a horse who won the opening race on Pennsylvania Derby Day. His name is Tuskegee Airman. Let's go back and take a look at his win at Parks.
They reach a 1/4 mile left to go. Daydreaming Boy, Didinger in between horses, Tuskegee Airman. Here comes the run from Batuto de Oro's, ranging up on the outside. Tuskegee Airman has taken the lead. It's Tuskegee Airman who's now up by a full length. Didinger continues to chase with Daydreaming Boy. Batuto de Oro is chasing as well. It is Tuskegee Airman and Luis Saez. They reach the 16th pole now, 3 widening lengths in front. Tuskegee Airman wins the opener. Tuskegee Airman over Didinger.
Jeff, the Rocky Run, does it run through Tuskegee Airman?
I think it might. These are interesting races. They're not graded or anything like that, but they're 2-year-olds going long, and occasionally you'll see one leave his previous form behind and maybe run well enough to take on bigger and better company, maybe down at Churchill Downs. But Tuskegee Airman is a $200,000 son of street sense, so I think he's always been fairly well regarded, and he wins his debut, as we saw, with a very strong 77 Beyer number, and he did it like a colt that wants to run long, and being produced by Medalla d'Oro O'Mara, he really should. So here's a colt that, all right, he breaks his maiden first time out, and he does it in style. He earns a good number. Now he's moved up to Stakes Company, which is where you'd go with a colt like this. For 2 turns, he's bred for it. It's going to be interesting to see if he can become somebody.
Right.
what you're looking for here. There's a few horses in here that have form, including number 3, Midnight Trouble, who was a 7-length allowance race winner at Delaware, 2 races back, and then got beat sprinting in a stakes. He's pretty useful, and so I'm interested to see if Tuskegee Airman is going to step forward and improve. He is 2-1 in the morning line, so I thought maybe he might be a little higher than that, but he is the morning line favorite. So depending upon how short he goes, he might be a gamble, but I wouldn't take less than 2-1. But I'm still very interested to see Tuskegee Airman, see if he can do something, step forward in the 6th race at Delaware. It's a $100,000 listed stakes for 2-year-olds called the Rocky Run.
Interesting note about Tuskegee Airmen. I was looking around and doing a little research on the race. Danny Gibson from the Pennsylvania Thoroughbred Association had an interview after this race on Pennsylvania Derby Day with Chuck Zachney of Fleet Alex and Cassius King stable fame. And they had the 1-2 finishers in this race, and they thought the runner-up Didinger was their good one. And Tuskegee Airmen dusted him. And Didinger was the horse who was 6-5 in that spot, had come out of a 3rd at Saratoga. They had taken him up to Saratoga, and they named him after Ray Didinger, the great NFL films and NFL writer in Philadelphia, iconic journalist. And they like their sports. And when they name horses after horses or after people in the Philly sports market, that's usually their thing with Service and Cassius King stable. So they like Didinger a lot. And it was interesting that this horse just dusted Didinger by 5 on the opening race there, PA Derby Day. So some good insights found there on YouTube digging around. And if he's as good as that race, he's going to be tough to beat there in the Rocky Run, as you mentioned. Race number 6 at Delaware Park on Saturday. Let's go back to our list of stakes races as we transition to the first of 2 3-year-old filly graded stakes of the weekend. It's the Sands Point Grade 2 race at the Belmont and Aqueduct meet. This is 1 1/8 miles on the main track. Starts on that little bit of an elbow start in the inside of the turf course at Aqueduct, and then they'll make a lap around the course proper. Same distance, same group of fillies that we're going to talk about in the Queen Elizabeth II Challenge Cup, that a Grade 1 at Keeneland coming up next. But in this one, Jeff, the name horse in here is Pizza Bianca. She was good last year, of course. She won the Breeders' Cup juvenile fillies on the turf. Christophe Clement sent her overseas. Didn't work out so well when she went to the Coronation Stakes last time. But can she get back on the beam like she was at Pimlico? That's what we're really looking at. And I know you wanted to show the fans her win at Pimlico last time, or 2 starts back in the Hilltops. Let's take a look at that, and then we'll get your thoughts on Pizza Bianca.
And here's Pizza Bianca. She's beginning a move now, and she's slipping through the inside. Pizza Bianca, 7, now 6.5. 6 lengths from the front as they turn in with a quarter to go at Pimlico. Murph the target. Diamond Hands in hot pursuit. And Pizza Bianca's let loose out the center of the course from 3rd, and Vergara is 4th with a furlong left to go. And Murph holds on to a narrow lead. Pizza Bianca on the outside. Diamond Hands in between horses. On the far outside, Lady Pucci starting to roll late, but Pizza Bianca takes over. Pizza Bianca gets the job done to win by 2 in the Hilltop. Pizza Bianca.
So, Jeff, she's been 1-2 in every race in America except the time she went overseas, of course, to run at Royal Ascot. So, Pizza Bianca here in this spot, what do you make of her chances at the 1 1/8 miles?
Well, she's been consistent, and there's nothing wrong really with her 8th place finish of 12 in the Coronation at Royal Ascot. I mean, Inspiral on those kind of horses, Spenderella. You can't get any better in the world probably than fillies like that. And so she wasn't quite up to that. But something, she doesn't have to be up to that to beat this field. This is a logical spot to bring her back for Christophe Clement, who's solid with comebacking horses. And he probably could have considered running her in the QE2, but why not just run in your own backyard? You haven't been out now since June, and you just you got still plenty of good races ahead of her. So I think this is a logical spot for her. She can rally from way back. I thought that win at Pimlico and the Hilltop was stylish. I like the way she did it. Number was solid. I haven't seen any workouts. We don't cover the workouts at Belmont from a video standpoint. I wish we did, but they look pretty good to me. I imagine that she's ready to roll, and so I'm going to go with Pizza Bianca. I think she'll outclass this field.
One name you mentioned in her running lines was Spenderella, of course, who went out west and won the Del Mar Oaks. She looked to be 1-5 in one of these kinds of spots, but she has not worked since the Del Mar Oaks. So she's on the sidelines, not sure what the issue is or if they just put her away for the year and want to bring her back better at 4. But you had to think she was going to be an absolute standout in the Grade 1 QE2, but no Spenderella, so the division has some openings. They're taking help wanted applications for these top stakes here at the end of the season in October. We'll see who the Sands Point goes to, but you've got Pizza Bianca in there. Grand Motion doesn't have Spenderella, but he does have Lady Baffled, the first-time runner into his barn, going here in the Sands Point. And, pretty evenly matched group beyond Pizza Bianca, but if she's as good as she looked last year and into this spring, if she comes back that well, she, like you said, outclasses this group. Let's go next on our stake schedule. Our third event of the weekend will be the Queen Elizabeth II Challenge Cup. This race at Keeneland, part of the late pick 4 on the Saturday 10 race card in Lexington. Want to remind you that there is a $5,000 hit and split in the late pick 4 at Keeneland Friday, Saturday, and Sunday when you bet with First Bet and Express Bet. So that means if you take down the late pick 4, either Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, in each of those pick 4s, Express Bet and First Bet's adding an extra $5,000 to the winners. You'll split that up with just people who won on those platforms. So you might be adding a significant chunk of change to your late pick 4 on Saturday if you take it down at Keeneland. That includes the Queen Elizabeth II Challenge Cup. Chad Brown wins a lot of these Philly on the turf stakes. He's won the QE2 3 of the last 4 years. He's got McCulloch. He's got Gina Romantica. He's got a third of this, about a third of this 7-horse field.
Yeah, I mean, you would expect it. I would have expected to see some Euros in here. We have one, Paris Peacock, who is actually 10-1 in the morning line, and it probably is better than 10-1. McCulloch, I mean, I don't consider her to be a really top class 3-year-old filly, but hey, she's earned $1 million, so he's doing something right.
Right.
And she's a pro, and I really liked her winning the Jockey Club Oaks at Belmont at Aqueduct back in mid-September. Because I liked Toscana Belle, that was the German filly, and I thought she ran her race, and I thought McCulloch just beat her on the square. So I have to give her credit for that, and I don't think there's any reason why she can't win again.
Let's go back and take a look at that race at the Belmont at Aqueduct meet.
Toscana Belle getting closer in second, and now McCulloch. She makes her move on the extreme outside. There goes McCulloch up to challenge for the lead. Toscana Belle's in between horses and beside herself down at the rail. It is McCulloch ranging up on the outside, and McCulloch is now taking the lead. Toscana Belle continues to battle on, and down at the rail is beside herself. And now coming on late on the outside is Miss Yearwood. It is McCulloch with the lead. Toscana Belle not giving up. They come on for the finish, and it is McCulloch to win the Grade 3 Jockey Club Oaks under Rod Ortiz Jr.
That was a nice turn of foot. It kind of made you thought that race was a mile on the turf, to kind of make that kind of swoosh move on a turn and keep kicking like that. But that was a mile and 3/8, so that's pretty impressive. The cutback here is to a mile and 1/8, and can she be sharp enough at a mile and 1/8? I guess would be the question. After winning at a mile and 1/4, winning at a mile and 3/8, now she's got to sharpen up a little bit. But that turn of foot made it look like that's certainly within her capability.
Yeah, this race probably will be slowly run early. It's going to be a galloper's race. If you can find the leader, the front running here, I'm not sure who's going to take the initiative and go. But it's going to bunch up, and we'll see who is in the right spot at the right time. I mentioned Paris Peacock. I did go back and watch both of her races at Gowran Park in Ireland. They were listed stakes. She took a while to break her maiden, so I don't know why she got good or if she's just getting good, but her time form ratings are rising, and the 103 time form rating that she earned in her most recent race was solid. I mean, that makes her a fit with these, and again at 10-1. I think she's got a very good chance to outrun those odds. The California Invader from Phil D'Amato's Martin Bellabelle. She's a nice filly. I don't think she's top class or anything like that. She's a trier. She's genuine. She's consistent. Numbers are just so. I would not be that enthusiastic about her chances. Gina Romanica, I mean, she might even draft into the lead for all
I think she's going to the front. That's my prediction. Yeah, because Chad's got 2 in here, right? And it's not going to be McCulloch. She's not fast enough early. So I think Chad uses her as the pace. And I think Flavia Pratt's going to send, and that makes her a little dangerous in here. We've seen last week with Italian going to the front in a race where nobody went with her, and Chad's Regal Glory, the big favorite, couldn't quite get her. This could happen again. It's not out of the question if Gina Romantica and Flavia Pratt are left alone.
Yeah, no, I would send her and then maybe try to win it either from the lead or from behind, one way or the other.
Right.
Your Chad. So Gina Romanica is right there with these fillies. Again, she's only run the 6 times, so there's certainly every reason to think she can get better. So kind of a tactical race. As you mentioned, Spenderella would be like 1-9 in this race. She did come out of the Del Mar.
And she'd be lone speed.
She'd be anything she'd want to be in this race.
Yeah.
But she did come out worse for wear off the Oaks, and it was announced soon after that she was done for the year. So hopefully she can come back and regain her best form next year. But anyway, this is a great one. This is a serious race to win on the resume, and when you have a filly like this that has a chance to win it, even if you run second or third, it's not too bad. So we'll see what happens. But I think, McCulloch, I know one thing. She'll lay her body down. She'll give you everything she has, and she's got enough tactical speed to lay fairly close and then grind away. So I'm going to go 6/7 here. McCulloch and try to get Paris Peacock, who video-wise, I watched the race. I thought that was pretty good race. And it was a big field. You went a 16-runner race over there at Stakes in Ireland. You got to be able to beat some horses that can run,
Yeah, and she's not a plotter from the back. I mean,
no, not at all.
She was involved. And with Ferrand Giroux, who's a pretty aggressive early jockey when he's got some speed, they may go to the front too. It's Gina Romantica or her probably that I think go to the front. I always just trust American horses as being quicker than the Euros, even if Euros are forwardly placed over there. But you can see that as a potential possibility. But you want to be near the front in this race, Jeff. The last 8 years, the average winner of this race has been a half length off the lead.
There you have it.
After the opening half mile. This has been a speed fillies race.
Yeah, and this filly has gone to the lead and won in the past. So they know that's part of the arsenal they can employ if they have to. I think they can read a form, and I'm sure Jessica Harrington will say, look, if you can fall in the lead, go for it. We've won that way before. It's not like she'll get lost out there. So that's why I say 10-1. She might be the best gamble in the field.
And Paris Peacock, American Owned, Glen Hill Farm, Craig Burnick, etc. So they can read a form.
For sure.
Especially with American form. Let's go to our next stakes race on the Saturday docket. It's the California Distaff at Santa Anita. It's the race number 3 on the card. We want to remind you that the pick 6 on Saturday at Santa Anita, which does not involve the California Distaff, I believe will kick off in the next race, in the 4th race on the card, if memory serves correct. But that pick 6, final 6 races on the card, guaranteed pool, mandatory payout. There's over $250,000 in the carryover. Track officials expect a pool of $2 million plus on Saturday in the pick 6 at Santa Anita. So let's get a little handicapping help here. And if you take down that pick 6 with Express Bet and First Bet when you play on our platforms, there's going to be an extra $5,000 to hit and split. Not that many people are going to hit a pick 6, Jeff. So this isn't like a pick 4 or a pick 5 hit and split. 5,000 additional bucks for a pick 6 hit and split. If you're going to play it with First Bet and Express Bet, because there's a very good chance you're the only person taking down the extra $5,000 in the pick 6.
Absolutely.
And even at the 20-cent denomination, maybe there's 3 people and you're adding, about $1,700 to your winning ticket with the hit and split. So definitely want to get involved with that on Saturday. And the Cal Distaff is race number 3 down the hill here. Jeff, give us a little setup of what you're expecting in this one.
I'm expecting Legs Galore to regain her winning form, even though she was beaten in her last 3. She's won 7 out of 9 at Santa Anita on the grass for Phil D'Amato, and she did run winning races in her last 2, even though she was beaten twice in a row at 6-5, 2 races back, beaten just 3/4 of a length by Twilight Gleaming, who's very, very good filly. We'll talk about her a little bit later on.
Yes, we will.
And then last time out, she got worn down late by Connie Swingle, and Connie Swingle is like, man, she is a terrific turf sprinter. Her stablemate, younger stablemate, both running winning races. Numbers are solid. She cleared. What happened in that race, though, is she made the lead and she kind of slowed it down, which you'd think would be the right thing to do. But Connie Swingle, when she can see you, she will beat you. And she
Mhm.
collared her late. Legs Galore was not stopping. It was just give credit to Connie Swingle, who came back out of that race and verified the race. If you wanted to have any kind of concern, though, and this is something we don't have to deal with maybe ever anymore, is the weight, because this is a handicap, and Legs Galore is carrying 125 pounds, which, I mean, she's carried 20, 24, stuff like that, but the other ones are in light, so that's the difference there, and that might give you a little pause if you're trying to take 4 to 5 on a mare that otherwise would look like a standout. I'm not a big weight guy, especially when you talk about better horses. The better horses, to me, can carry more weight, and it affects their form a lot less than it would be a cheaper horse. So I think Legs Galore will probably be able to carry it, but I'm not sure there's a gamble here other than Legs Galore looks like she probably will win.
Yeah, and early pick 5, looking at a single, races 1 through 5 on the card at Santa Anita here. Probably Legs Galore 2 for 2 down the hill. She's 7 for 9 at Santa Anita. She doesn't get beat often. We're going to see it on video a little bit later when we talk about Twilight Gleaming running in Sunday's Franklin Stakes. You'll get a chance to go back and see that Daisy Cutter Stakes where Legs Galore was collared in that one. But she's going to be tough to beat. There's not much other speed in this race. For a downhill turf sprint, you'd expect to see a little more early gas. She might put 3 on these in the first couple jumps, and they're going to have to come and get her. Legs Galore, of course, to beat in the California Distaff on Saturday at Santa Anita. Again, a big pick 6 carryover, mandatory payout Saturday at the Great Race Place. Certainly is going to garner the attention. An extra reminder, British Champions Day, Saturday morning. You can see Baid, the great undefeated runner, in what is expected to be his final career start. Let's turn our attention now to Sunday's racing here on the First Call podcast. We've got stakes south and north of the border, as we've got 3 in the U.S. to take a look at New York, in Kentucky, and California, and north of the border, the Princess Elizabeth Stakes at Woodbine. Jeff, let's go to Woodbine for our first look here on the Sunday Stakes. It's a mile and a 16th race here in the Princess Elizabeth, the mile and a 16th on the synthetic, I should say, to Peter Surface there. Who are we going with at Woodbine?
Tough race, really, really tough race here. These are Canadian-bred fillies, but it's a good purse, and there's some decent sort of fillies. I originally looked at Me and My Shadow. This is a violence filly trained by Mark Cassidy, who won her debut over the all-weather, and that is significant because she has proven winning form over this course. Then they sent her to the Schuylerville at Saratoga, which wasn't, in my way of thinking, a real tough race, and I actually thought she had a chance to win it, and she didn't, but that was dirt. Now she's back on the all-weather, and she looks like she's training steadily for Mark Cassidy. I would expect that going along, they'll try to put her on the lead here, and if she can get loose, Me and My Shadow may be tough to beat. Now, Wickenheiser, drawn right alongside number 7, 11-drop Kid filly, has never done anything other than run on grass, so I don't know how she's going to handle it, but she is coming out of some tough races. Broker Maiden first time out very nicely. Numbers are solid. Tried her back on the grass and to catch a glimpse, and then the Tama, which was a grade 1. Right. Again, not running badly, just not up to it. Now she's trying all weather. She's getting Lasix for the first time, and she's also putting blinkers on. So lots of things to consider here. I'm curious to see how she's going to run. I think the winner will probably be one of those 2. I'm not quite sure what the line will be. The odds are, but I could see either one winning, and I think that's where your handicapping has to begin and end, with those 2.
Me and My Shadow, trained by Mark Cassidy. He's got just 15 stakes wins this meet at Woodbine. I think the second most is like 4. I mean, Cassidy, he's got big numbers. I think his win percentage in the stakes races is like hovering around 15. He runs multiple horses in a lot of those as well. But 15 stakes wins this meet for Mark Cassidy at Woodbine. He's owned the big money races, as he's been apt to do over the years. Let's go to Belmont at Aqueduct. Next up on the list of stakes races this weekend, as the Floral Park on Sunday will be raced at 6 furlongs on the turf. Once upon a time, this was a dirt stakes, but it's been on the turf the last couple of years, similar to what we'll see in the Franklin Stakes next up at Keeneland. Again, these are distaffers, turf sprinters, but we've got a good-sized field in this one, Jeff. We've got 9 of them entered for the turf. Frank's Rocket has entered main track only in this particular spot. So give us a thought on who you're taking here in the Floral Park.
Ended up with Lady Edith here. She's coming out of some fast races at Saratoga. 5.5 might have been a little too sharp for her, but both races that she ran, I thought were solid for Christophe Clement. She switches to Joelle Rosario, and I think at this distance, I think you're going to see her settle somewhere in the second flight and be able to kick home. Again, she's been running against better horses. Her numbers are very strong. In fact, make her actually a rather significant, gives her a rather significant edge in this race, I think. So against this group, I think she's got a chance to sit somewhere relatively close, closer than she normally is, and then maybe wear down the speed with Rosario. I'm going to go with Lady Edith to win the Fuller Park at Belmont Park.
Interesting to see Rosario go back up to Aqueduct for Sunday, with all the good racing at Keeneland. The kind of a good sign, I think, for this filly. That I don't know if he's there to ride somebody else specifically. It wouldn't seem to be on the card. This being the money race there, so a pretty aggressive move, I think, leaving the day at Keeneland to come up and ride in New York on Sunday for Rosario, and he'll partner with Jeff's pick in there, Lady Edith. We stay with the Distaff Turf Sprinters and the fillies on the turf going 5.5 furlongs on Sunday at Keeneland that are in the Franklin Stakes. Used to be called the Franklin County. It was sponsored by Buffalo Trace, so you might have heard this race called the Buffalo Trace Franklin County. They dropped the county. They dropped everything. It's just Franklin now, Jeff. It's Franklin. And in race number 7 on Sunday at Keeneland, it's really about Twilight Gleaming. This is a sensational filly. She's won 5 of 8. She's never been worse than second. That includes trips to France and last year in the Queen Mary at Royal Ascot. She's danced many of the tough dances. She's gone east. She's gone west. Let's see her last race in the Daisy Cutter Stakes against the aforementioned Legs Galore that we talked about in Southern California. This was quite an effort at Del Mar.
Top of the lane, Legs Galore on the inside and Twilight Gleaming. They still nose and nose as they turn for home. Coming to take them on now is She's So Nice down the center. Havana Love is running on. Christmas Surprise finishing well. They come for home. Twilight Gleaming just in front. Twilight Gleaming, Legs Galore, Christmas Surprise. Twilight Gleaming wins it. Christmas Surprise just a tad unlucky in that second spot, and then close Legs Galore and Havana Love.
Good ride that day by Juan Hernandez, because they had to ride every step of the way to put away a pesky Legs Galore and then have just enough left. The jock now becomes John Velasquez, which, you don't get much better than that riding in New York. Velasquez has only been aboard this filly one time when she went to Royal Ascot. So he had to go a long way to get the mount on her when she ran a good second in the Queen Mary. Is it all Twilight Gleaming in here, Jeff, or do you see somebody else who might be able to pull an upset?
Well, I do like Twilight Gleaming. I doubt you. When you go head and head with Legs Galore, usually you pay the price, and she was still able to put that one away and draw clear. That was a good win for her. Numbers wise, there's a filly in here that could be dangerous if she shows up with her best race. That's Caravel. She was a stakes winner at Saratoga 2 races back. Disappointed, I thought, at Presque Isle Downs, but that's all weather, so I'm not going to hold that against her. Caravel on her best day for Brad Cox. Now she doesn't always fire. I mean, she's one of these fillies that I don't know if you've seen this very often, but she's got 18 starts, Caravel, 10 wins and no seconds. Yeah. So she's either going to fire and beat you, or she just says, go ahead. So I don't know which version we're going to see. Right. But if Caravel shows up with her best stuff, she can run with Twilight Gleaming. Having said that, Twilight Gleaming lightly raced for Wesley Ward, and obviously after Del Mar, I'm sure he put his, he wants to keep her sprinting on the turf, so he probably checked out the schedule and said, okay, Keeneland's my track. I'll just give her a breather, and then we'll point for this race. So I'm pretty sure this is the race that they've been aiming for, and when Wesley has his sights set on a particular race, he knows how to get there. So I like Twilight Gleaming. I fear Caravel. I think those are the two that you could probably be safe with using and have a very good chance of getting by in this race if you're playing any rolling exotics. About Time is the other one that I would give a shot to. I loved her win at Monmouth 2 races back, so much so that I thought she had a very good chance in the Caress. She was flat that day. I don't know what happened to her. She just didn't fire, but she's fresh. She's dangerous, and she has numbers that can win this race. So I'm using Twilight Gleaming. I'm using Caravel, and I'm using Bout Time, and it's not a bad try box if you want to play that wager as well. I think those three have a chance to leave themselves separate themselves from the pack.
Something you mentioned there with the favorite in here, Twilight Gleaming, that kind of perked my ears up is when you run that hard against Legs Galore, you typically pay the price, you know, and she didn't in that race. But will she now? Did that race knock her out a bit? Because look at the workout tab. Since that race, July 29th, she came back and worked August 29th and then didn't show up again until October 1st.
Yeah.
Curious. And she's a horse who on Breeders' Cup Day won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint last year. Should she be a horse who's looking at the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint if she's in her A game? And why is she here and not in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint? Maybe, just maybe, there's Twilight Gleaming might not be the one we see in form. You know, maybe she's got, maybe she's got to kind of get it back here.
Or maybe Wesley doesn't think she can be Golden Pal. I don't know.
That's true. Yeah, he's got. Yeah, he's
no,
got options.
I see the gap that you. I tell you what. Normally, I would be really concerned. But I've watched Wesley train. There are all kinds of gaps in here and there. And
right. Yeah. He is not conventional.
That's the only way. If it had been anybody else, I'd say, something. She missed some time. They're running her here to get her fit, and whatever next race will be is the one she's going to be pointing for. And that it still may be true. Which is why which is why I fear Caravel and Bout Time. But and one other thing about this is that Wesley scratches a lot of horses. So if he leaves her in the field, I think he's probably telling us she's okay. Yeah. But if not, then maybe she doesn't even show up. I don't know. It's intriguing.
Good point about Ward though, because like you kind of get to know your trainers, right? Yeah. Some are like every 6 day people, and when like Hollendorfer, right? When Hollendorfer's off the every 6 day, this horse must really have some kind of problem, when they miss 2 weeks worth of works or something. Right. So get to know the trainers for sure. Wesley unconventional. I mean, typically you'll see, Wesley will have 2 in a race, and he'll have an A-list jockey on one and a B-list jockey on the other, and the B-list jockey's on the good one.
Exactly.
So
right.
He's not your typical coach's playbook trainer.
Exactly.
For sure. Let's go back and take a look at the schedule here of other races we're going to analyze on the Sunday program, October 16th. Beyond the Franklin, we go to the California Flag next at Santa Anita. Will be race number 9 on the card at the Great Race Place. We're down the hill again, another turf sprint. The turf sprinters in the spotlight this weekend, not only at Keeneland and at Aqueduct on Sunday, but also at Santa Anita Saturday and Sunday. The California Flag, Jeff, this one for the Colts and Geldings, the Saturday Stakes race for the fillies. Who'd you end up with here in race number 9 at Santa Anita?
I like a horse here, number 6, the Chosen Vron. Now, I've watched this horse ever since he made his first start at Santa Anita back in December of 2020. Always thought, and it's kind of weird that he's 4 years old. He seems like he should be like 7 or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But here he is breezing a 49 and a fifth. This was last Saturday, and they don't allow horses to breeze on turf here in California. So all the turf horses, the trainers, they breeze them on the training track, which is a lot firmer than the really deep and loose main track. And the grass horses get around on the training track much better. This was a nice, easy breeze for this Eric Kruljack trained gelding. He's just kind of coasting along. I mean, he's never being asked. This is what you want to see a week out from a race. You don't need to see anything too fast. You just want to see a horse that's happy. And I think the Chosen Vron is going to be very, very happy sprinting down the hill. And here's why. Number 1, he's run well routing. I think he's a much better sprinter. Number 2, I think he's much better on grass. What better than run 6.5 down the hill than for the Chosen Run than this race? The California Flash Handicap. His numbers are very, very strong. I mentioned he's a very good sprinter. Back in the day, this is a horse that has beaten Defunded, which is pretty impressive when you consider Defunded. Right. And he's also beaten a horse named Laurel River. You might hear a lot about Laurel River in about 3 weeks in the Breeders' Cup Mile. So to me, the Chosen Run, this is the perfect race for him. He's coming off a win at Los Al. His last 2 buyer numbers were in the mid-90s, which is faster than anything here. Again, I don't know what the price is going to be. I didn't get the morning line yet, but The Chosen Vron, to me, this is a really, really nice 4-year-old gelding by Vronsky, who, by the way, gets much better grass horses than dirt horses. This is what he wants to do. For me, the Chosen Vron is my best play of the week.
He'll have to beat maybe None Above the Law in there, who comes off a really nice perk up last time, and Peter Miller's horses are running really well here in the last couple weeks at Santa Anita. So that barn seems to be perking up. None Above the Law had a nice jump in buyer speed figures last time when running 4th, beating a length in the Santa Anita Sprint Championship. So that might be the opposition to the Chosen Vron. That's going to wrap up our handicapping of the 8 stakes races this weekend. I want to remind you once again that Pick 4 hitting splits at Keeneland on the final 4 races on the card, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. When you bet with First Bet and Express Bet, you'll split $5,000 in additional cash with others who hit on the platform in those late Pick 4s. Mandatory payout in the Rainbow 6 on Saturday at Santa Anita. Again, track officials estimate the pool to be about $2 million. Got about $250,000 in the carryover. No live racing Friday at Santa Anita, so that carryover is going to hold the Saturday for sure. Of course, they had the Columbus Day holiday card on Monday at Santa Anita, so no live racing on Friday. But Jeff, you didn't take the day off, did you? I logged in. I was posting some stuff for the website, and bam, you got a couple best bets in there for today.
Yeah, I wasn't planning on doing it. I look at the races, and if I like something, I'll post it. And there are a couple of horses that I like, so check that out. Especially
Strobe, one of those. Remember?
No, I really want to see him because we saw his race on Derby Day.
Yeah.
I thought he was terrific that day, and he ran fast. But he hasn't run back since. But he's trained like he's ready. And there's a colt that could be a really good late 3 into the 4-year-old season if he can stay healthy, because that first race, I know it was made, but he did it the right way. And I don't know what kind of price again he's going to be today, Keeneland. But if he comes back as well as he left, that's a serious racehorse, I think.
He is a grade 1 Malibu contender for December 26th at Santa Anita because the calendar, right? He didn't debut until Derby Day of his 3-year-old year and the last race on the card. Now he doesn't get back to the races till October. Obviously, some space between it seems necessary for him, but he's brilliantly talented. Kind of, I'm not saying he's Flightline, but just the way they need to space the races out, and as impressive as he was right off the get there on Derby Day. If he wins today at Keeneland Strobe, he could be a horse you'll see in your backyard in the Malibu for trainer Brad Cox coming up December 26th to open the winter spring meet at Santa Anita. That's going to wrap up all the handicapping action for today on the First Call podcast. On behalf of everybody at First Technologies and my partner, Jeff Siegel. We'll talk to you on Tuesday on It's Official when we take 5 weekend topics, review them, and make them official. Curious to see what we come back with after a big weekend in Australia, in England, in Canada, and here in the US of A. Have a good weekend, everybody.